So if you know how to use the permissionless forms of leverage, those are the highest forms of leverage because you don't need to ask anyone for permission to go create, a podcast, go create a landing page and sell a service. But then, if you want to go raise money or if you want to go ask people to come work for you, you need permission to go do that, right? So a lot of my skill set was formed around labor leverage, which is, again, the most antiquated form of leverage, but we need people to go grow things, right? Today, find out what form of leverage you think you can be best at today and underscore that to its highest capability to go grow a business, to then allow yourself to relinquish control from that business. Again, I go back to a lot of times is like, how do you relinquish control? You don't want to build something to know that you cannot unwind yourself from that. Yeah. And it's very important to the audience to understand that because, we start building stuff and then incur all the stress and start taking the medication and we know why we're unhappy in life. A lot of things in life can be solved by a good night's rest, a glass of water, and a hard workout. And if people understood that, I think the healthcare industry would probably be a lot less profitable.
You're listening to Musings with Morales, brought to you by Dialysis Education Services.
Welcome to Musings with Morales. I'm Morales, and I'm here with a special guest today, Sam Mahmood, an elite footballer, entrepreneur, med device guru, wears many hats. Sam, thank you for coming out on short notice and being willing to share all the journey, the experiences, and hopefully some advice that we can take home, kind of learn, take some notes from you, but also maybe find ways to support and be a consumer in some cases, because I know you got a lot of great things coming on. So thanks for coming out, Sam.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
I don't know much about you outside of what I've seen online content, again, from a very trusted referral or friend, Omar Khatib. We share in kind of the genre of things that we're doing in the healthcare spectrum.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about yourself first, because that's something we always want to do on Musings is we consider this a family. It is a community that is engaged in kind of learning from our guests. And I think it's really important that we just get what you're willing to share with us.
For sure. Yeah. So I'm Sam Mahmood. I grew up in San Diego to two immigrant parents who fled the war in Iraq back in the 1970s. And then as I was a kid, I have a huge passion for soccer. We call it football in my world. I played that for about 20 years, and I played that in high school all the way through college, played Division I, and then had a passion to go try to pursue professional soccer as well. From then, I realized that I wasn't a head, shoulders above, better than the next person in front of me. So I had an inflection point in life where I said, I have to go choose what route I want to go do. Do I want to go continue pursuing soccer, making a nominal amount of money, or do I want to go take a med device job at the age of 24? When you have $700 in your bank account, you kind of have a choice to make that's a little bit unprecedented. So I took the medical device job. I got a degree in global supply chain and business strategy, and I was able to use that as my first job, working at an interesting company called Edwards Life Science that's publicly traded over $1 billion market cap, and was a supply chain analyst for them, dictating where all the heart valves went all over the world.
Okay.
I thought it was a very unique experience because it taught me a lot of things in the sense that you are praised by not making mistakes on spreadsheets, but the second you do, all eyes on you. And I realized I didn't want to be in that position. And my father is a ruthless entrepreneur. A little debrief about him and my experience with my father is he still runs a hard money lending business in the advanced payday world. If your audience doesn't know what that means, is you are lending cash, hard money cash, to people on a daily basis that then owe you a dividend on that 2 weeks later, right? Mm-hmm. At a high interest rate. So, from a young age, my level of entrepreneurship was understanding what money coming in and money coming out really looks like, looking at P&L statements, balance sheets, cash flow statements at the age of 12.
Oh, wow.
And whether it was whether it was punishment or whether I was on good behavior, that was my daily task in order to get taken to the soccer field at 4:30 p.m. every single day, down in the hood in San Diego. And I remember those times, and those are some of the best times of my entire life, to be honest, because it taught me just grit. It moved my baseline to understand what hard feels like. I think today we live in a society where the path to entry is so easy, where, my parents had to come here, leave a country that had a ton of war going on, and they have to go figure out how to build a business with minimal technology, not knowing the language, and understanding an industry that was new to them at this time. So for us today, I look at my life as being an entrepreneur, building businesses. My excuse level is very limited now, right? I always go back and say, you know what? How hard is this right now for me? It's not as hard as what my parents went through.
Yeah,
and they're always a great reminder of that. So yeah, now I'm at the age of 32. I got heavily in the medical device space, built a medical device company at the age of 25. I started as a sales rep, and I found myself being able to sell to physicians quite well. From that, I saw an opportunity where I can become an entrepreneur by being able to, instead of working for one company, I was able to distribute from multiple different companies as a 1099. Easy way to explain this: imagine Adidas, Reebok, Nike all came to you and said, "Hey, Sam, you can have all of Southern California, and you can go sell to all these different stores." So I had that right to go do so in the medical device sector.
Were these like exclusive or regional type of rights, or?
Correct. There were geographic rights to that area. And I'm this 25-year-old, young guy full of testosterone, ready to go conquer the world. And I thought that was a very, very awesome experience for me to go take on, because when you're naive in business at that young age, you are limitless.
Yeah.
And those are some of the best times to go learn from, because as you actually gather data about yourself and you start creating experiences, you start to maybe hold off on the things that you're actually going to go pursue.
Yeah.
Because you've now realized the limitations that can happen by taking steps in areas that probably aren't in your best interest anymore. So what I mean by that is, when I was 25 doing this, I literally was running around with my head cut off, and all I focused on was how much can I sell today, right? And every day I was measuring my growth, and I can measure it by the hour, by the day. And it was very, very important to me to know that I can go have consistent measurements that I can go measure based off of to see my level of success. And I still use that today in the business that I run, which is quite ironic, because every time I look back at my level of success, I think about my 25-year-old self,
it's
of how
the same
hard I ran.
principles, right?
It's the same principles.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
So I'm really proud of myself, like at that time where I just worked on working so hard in a consistent manner. And if things are ever going wrong in my life today, I always look back at like, where was the highest level of success I ever had? Is where I was super focused on a very niche item that I went 2 inches wide and 10 feet deep in.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that the same as the career you had as an athlete? I mean, it's very niche. It's going super deep. I mean, you get what you give, right? It's inches, not feet at a time.
Correct.
So do the same rules apply to being an elite athlete, in being an elite sales, and kind of, as we're going to move through this journey to where you're at today?
Absolutely. You're working on training a muscle. If you ever go to a gym, why do people say it's a chest day, it's a leg day? Is because you're trying to focus on moving in a compound that you can actually move volume in a certain area to create mass. And by doing so, you want to have a ton of repetition in one area. And that's where you start to actually see growth. So if you're ever in a place in life where you're seeing an inconsistency of growth, it's because you're not deepening the reps of that muscle today.
So I got to say, when you talked about the naiveness, have you ever seen these, they're like little short video on Facebook or Instagram where it's a little boy, and he's got this duck, little baby duckling, and he's got his bike, and he wants the duck to ride the bike, right? And the caption is like, he did it because nobody told him he couldn't do it. And he actually got the duck to sit on the seat of the bike, and he rode the duck around on his bike, like taking him for a cruise, But who would have thought, right? You could get the duck to actually ride the bike. So I agree with you about naiveness. It's like, there is no glass or any other type of ceiling when you don't know that there's a ceiling. So we're in the understanding of that distribution mode, the distribution company, kind of going back to the 20s, and even looking back at the career in football and saying, okay, same rules apply. Where are we moving on to now?
Yeah, so I'm all about like just taking evidence, right? I'm not a person that's actually big on self-belief. I'm more big on how much logic do you have to back up what you've done. So going back to saying, I was a supply chain analyst. I had a supply chain degree. I had a sales background where I was able to sell product to some of the most egalitarian individuals out there. So I was still selling product to mainly neurosurgeons, spine surgeons, plastic surgeons, very smart individuals. And I was able to get them to say yes to me for a lot of product I was selling.
Yeah.
So I said, how do you lever this and compound it to create more enterprise? So instead of just distributing for multiple different companies, I said I have to own this distribution. I have to be vertically integrated to actually create true enterprise and what I want to go build to one day go sell this. So I actually, one day I was 28 years old, and for some reason I was just burnt out. I was, sitting in surgeries all day. I was making a ton of money at that age, and I was still very upset with my life because I had actually poor leverage of my time. And we'll get deeper into that later on. Mm-hmm. So I said, how do I actually build in this sector where there's billion-dollar companies in here that I can go and create volume of something that doesn't require me to be there? So I was curious about this like surgical instrument space. It's a $4 trillion industry in the $4 billion industry in the medical device space. Mm-hmm. And I said, if I can capture a sliver of that, I'll do quite well. And I said, you know what, where's all the medical device instruments really made? It's made in this small little town called Tuttlingen, Germany. Mm-hmm. And it's the medical device mecca. If everybody knows, like that's where the biggest players make all their stuff. My crazy ass goes and looks at little manufacturing facilities over there, calls a couple of them a week before and said, hey, I'm coming out there. And I had no idea what I was doing. And that's the naiveness that you need sometimes in business to go actually create something that's going to be special. So I flew out to Philadelphia for this conference, this neurosurgery conference. Actually found an Airbnb that I liked, and I actually bought that blindly that weekend. Flew to Germany for 5 days and went to all these different manufacturers, met with all of them, came back. I was still not FDA registered or approved. Learned how to go do that on the fly on my flight home. Filled all this paperwork, called a consultant, did all that, and said, I'm going to go build this thing out. Mm-hmm. Again, naiveness. You don't know what you're walking into. Please, I'm going to tell you this story a little bit further so people can understand what to do and what not to do. In hindsight, still a great business. I built this medical device instrument business as well. So Surgical Republic now became a platform that sells nationally, not just geographically. And we distribute medical device implants, and we sell medical device surgical instruments across the country, backed by a lot of national contracts.
So can you explain the FDA, and this is my own naiveness here, is as a distributor, you need an FDA, what was the FDA pathway that you had to take then?
The FDA, you need to take FDA protocol if you are going to be the manufacturer of the products.
Okay, that's what I didn't catch. Is not just distribution, you're manufacturing as well.
Yeah, I'm the company with my company now is labeled on these instruments selling nationwide.
Okay.
More or less all these instruments can be a commodity, but there are a handful of instruments that I made that are very unique to me. With my background in spine surgery, I said, you know what, let me go make the best kerosene rongeur. That's what I'm probably known for the best. There are definitely other companies out there who also make a good rongeur, but I went and created it for a certain account that asked me they wanted a certain way. And to this day, I feel like I have one of the most unique rongeurs that I sell thousands of per year, just this one product. Mm-hmm. So it kind of came down to like focus on one thing that's going to have a more higher ticket aspect, and then you can go follow that up with more commodity stuff that can go capture more volume.
Understood.
So that's what I did, and I thought, can I go create a lot of leverage in a certain sector that was very important that will always outlast us? And I said, let's master spine surgery, neurosurgery, and be in that space, and then I can expand my horizon therefore afterward, and that's what we've done thus far.
Incredible, man. And this all started in the mid-20s.
Correct. It started when I was 28 years old, so about 4 years ago, more or less.
I'm 47, man, and like I'm taking 100% notes since we got introduced, and when I met Omar as well, taking notes. I don't know how Paco, Paco's sitting over there behind the camera, but it's a weird feeling. I've ran a few companies where I've had like a 19-year-old that is like, I couldn't live without her.
Yep.
COVID operations times. Like I had all these kids from UCI and, they're still in school, but they were just so brilliant, man.
Yeah.
And 32 years old, you've already accomplished, you've got this life story already, and you're actually like, to be content is a beautiful thing. You like where you're at in your life, which you've said a few times in some of the content and since you've been here. Incredible. So you've started the med device side. I know that as we evolve in the career or in the journey here, that you've taken on now the investing, the holding company. You're building this portfolio, and what's that all about? And then kind of what's your role? What's a day in the life of Sam in managing, operating, like what's that like?
Yeah, it's quite fun. I'm having, just as a preamble, I'm having the most fun of my entire life ever at the age of 32 today.
That's good.
And I want to keep it that way till I die, because this game is not worth living unless you're having a ton of fun while playing this game, because tomorrow is not really given to you.
Yeah.
It's funny, like, a lot of really smart people, not to ramble on this, think they have it all figured out, but then they have this $100 million company and they're not happy. And I'm like, you're not that smart, right? Like, you have to figure out happiness along the way while you're building something, because it's critical to understand that you are in this for the long run. This is a marathon.
Yeah.
So I want to build my life around that, right? So how did I kind of get in this whole investing game, building businesses? It was always just like creating some sort of compound interest, in the sense I was always just like, am I levering up from what I did last year, right? And as I was building this surgical instrument company and my distribution company, I started hitting some pretty big numbers in the 8-figure digits for a lot of these bigger companies, my company. And I said, okay, like, I'm creating a lot of enterprise value for a lot of businesses, for a lot of medical device companies, becoming a little bit well known in the space. So companies started approaching me and saying, like, hi, how are you doing this at such a young age? And I said, well, a lot of it is trial and error, more or less. But I think I have a knack for understanding product and people. And those are two controllable variables that I can go foresee some sort of outcome, right? So I got a lot of M&A opportunity exposure, and also my late 20s, more or less early 30s, where I signed a lot of NDAs with big companies that you probably know that I can't expose. And they would bring me on as an advisor when they want to go buy a small cap company. So a large cap company, let's say they're in the hundreds of millions, $1 billion company, want to go buy a small, maybe $30, $40 million company. And they said, Sam, like, you look like you built something bootstrapped, more or less. Like, come help us on some of these projects. What physicians you might think would be best suited for this as well, to assure that this level of technology has merit in perpetuity for our business.
Yeah.
And I said, sure, let's do this. So I started understanding, what are they measuring? They're measuring EBITDA they're measuring revenue multiples. They're measuring all these different metrics that were somewhat new to me at the age of 27, 28, more or less. I was like, this is a very interesting game. It's more or less private equity, right? So I got a deeper interest in this space, and as I was recouping a fair amount of cash, I said, you know what, let me start investing in some of these arenas myself. So I found a huge interest in creating a holding company. After I can go invest in other businesses, I invest in a lot of real estate, private equity, and I kind of explored. It's more or less where I really recommend everyone do this first, is go explore your options first before you just choose one pathway that you think is like the way that you have to go, which is not true. You'd be very surprised that, like, maybe your interests lead you into the art space, or can lead you in the media space, the technology space, the healthcare space. Go trial a bunch of stuff in your 20s. That's where you're supposed to have your trial and errors. And then after that, you find out what you become really good at, and you start narrowing your focus. So I invested in about 7 companies where I was minority and majority owner in some of these across multiple different sectors. I was more or less agnostic, right? I am part owner in surgery centers, some medical device companies, a marketing agency, a podcast agency. Got little pieces of everything to see where my interest really lies. Yeah. And they're all good companies. And to this day, I still own, shares in all these companies today. And I'm very happy I've done this, because now I know, like, okay, what do I really like and what do I not like now? And especially today with about like where AI is entering the space, I'm very focused on, like, okay, what is AI proof, more or less? So you asked me earlier, like, what's my day-to-day look like, right? I built the medical device company that I'm not as involved in the day-to-day operations whatsoever. I'm rarely in a surgery. I mainly meet with physicians, a new physician every once in a while that I know can add a lot of value to our company. But more or less, the reps that I've hired and the ability to be able to go delegate that to sales reps management that I've built into my company, handle the entire medical device company that is more or less like my biggest cash flowing business that allows me to start fueling future dividends and other things that I'm building today. Yeah. Right. So I've climbed one mountain, and then at that point I said, okay, I've climbed this mountain. How do I go down this mountain and climb a new mountain? One of the hardest challenges of any individual or an entrepreneur to go take on, because it's a mental masturbation exercise that you have to go figure out.
It is, man. Not that I know a lot about that topic, but so I'm thinking. Sorry to interrupt you. But I'm thinking back to another way that maybe you've said something similar, and forgive me if I get the term wrong, but was it honeywell or honeypot that you called it?
Yeah, you want to have your honeypot and then have your bees working for you.
Yeah.
And those little bees would be more or less the labor leverage that you start incurring, that you're bringing on to do the operational work for you. Mm-hmm. So you're working in the highest capacity, right? So early on, I started managing sales reps, and then I started managing more or less like directors. And now I have like a VP in place that I manage. Yeah. I'm like, okay, now I need to go manage other CEOs of companies that I can go buy and manage those CEOs. Multiple layers that I'm starting to learn from my own self what my skill set is, right? Before my skill set, I was a great salesman, still am a good salesman, but what's actually my new $1,000 an hour task? Yeah. It's actually recruiting the best talent at the highest level of a company and make them go to war for me. Great example. I played soccer my whole life. My favorite player is Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He's known as one of the most unapologetic footballers of all time. What I love about him in his interviews that he's talked about, and he's very unapologetic in those, is he talks a lot about the coaches that have made him look the best. Fabio Capello, Jose Mourinho. And then we all know there's one coach that's very well known. His name is Pep Guardiola, who loved Leo Messi, but did not love Zlatan, right? And Zlatan did not perform at Barcelona. But he performed for Fabio. He performed for Jose Mourinho at Inter and Juventus because they put fuel in Zlatan to make him be a warrior out there. So they actually, one of the most cheat codes that you can unlock as an operator or as an owner of a business is to be able to fuel fire in your employees in ways that no one else could.
Couldn't agree more.
So can you shine the light in them that no one else could shine the light in them if they didn't see you? Mm-hmm. If you know how to go do that, you can actually create a ton of leverage and scale in any operation and do this over and over again. And
these are nuggets, man.
Yeah.
For sure. I say these are nuggets because, as I think about different businesses that I've worked in or owned or own, the go to war for you, to me, is like one of the biggest factors to is this the right person in my organization? But I think from the other side is like, would I go to war for them as well? Like, what's the with where you're at today? And I know kind of like in the C-suites, in the director roles, it's kind of like, would you ask me to do something you wouldn't do? How much of your role today is an example to the company, the CEO? Yeah. Who's the example to, and what's your impact on that side of things, culture, et cetera?
Yeah, so I'm right now I'm actually building a private equity fund that is a roll-up strategy that's buying purely paving companies. I'll get into that in a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I've been trying to hire this acquisition associate role for a long time, and I found an ace employee that I think would be a fantastic fit for that. But the key aspect that I was trying to do with this whole art of delegation, right, of doing things that's lower than my hourly rate, more or less, is there's sometimes you do need to go downstream and do it yourself. Because I'm taking all this time to try to delegate and do and offset all these taxes and tasks and create all these reports for someone. And then it makes me actually do so much work where if I just actually did the work myself, I can get it done a lot faster. So the work even some days today, what I was doing was I was calling paving company owners myself, right? Because what I'm trying to do is find off-market companies that I can go buy that's doing between $1 and $10 million of EBITDA. Okay. And I said, you know what, can I go and find these companies and can I just go cold call them myself? Because I have kind of the elegant dance to be able to go do so with these owners. And it's very hard to go delegate that out. So sometimes you just have to create your own schedule and figure out ways where you're in your own creative flow, and you have to just modify yourself as an entrepreneur, not to be so restricted to doing one thing all the time. Yeah. That's the hardest part about being an entrepreneur. Yeah. You create your own playbook, right? So I try to actually make my days and schedules a little bit different each time. And that can be a little bit contradicting. We're saying you should be consistent in what you're doing. There's a level to that, but the same token, you want to have a little bit of creativity throughout your day as well to know I just unlocked a new cheat code in my life. Yeah.
So, you touched right on something that I had a few conversations prior to us meeting tonight. And a good friend of mine actually said, I'd love to hear from Sam, what are his opinions and on the valuation differences. I think I've already heard that you probably like both sides of this, but companies with the EBITDA of 1 to 10 versus the real estate sectors and other sectors, sounds like you like all or you play in all. But any thoughts you could shed on that in differences, preferences, approaches to these type of businesses?
Yeah, I purely focus on true cash flowing businesses that can go buy between 2 to 5x on EBITDA, right?
Okay.
On equity multiples. So what that means is basically you're calculating net operating income to the purchase price. And your equity multiple is basically how soon you can get your money back. In an environment today where inflation is very high, you want to be as cash flow liquid as possible.
Right.
And if you can go bundle that together with multiple cash flowing companies, you create a lot of enterprise value to get a much higher equity multiple on an exit.
Got it.
So that's what I'm looking to create.
Yeah. I think, hopefully London is watching and, I think he would align with that. What about your real estate? And I know you mentioned some real estate.
Yeah.
Anything along those lines that kind of hold that sort of value, and what's your approach, your thoughts on that?
I'll share my real estate journey, and so hopefully it can inspire some and confuse others. So a lot of people always say, like, go buy your first piece of real estate, go buy your home, more or less. It's actually one of the biggest hoax I would tell you is like not many people need to go buy a home today. It's actually more cost effective to go rent, if in all seriousness, because the debt ratios today and where interest rates are, you want to be asset strong with the right assets, right? When I was so early in my 20s, I said the first asset class I started investing before buying into businesses, I started buying small multifamily. I would show up in scrubs, find a contractor, go get a new tenant in there, went through the whole process. Yeah. And I was like, wow, this is not scalable whatsoever, right? So I built a portfolio of about 28 units, all in Southern California. And I realized it was one of the biggest mistakes I ever did. Cash flow is more or less limited. There's a lot of CapEx and operational X that goes in that. And it's better to leave things to experts and let them do what they do best. And I wish I learned that in my early 20s. So instead of just buying any sort of my own small multifamily or any of my own units now, I invest a lot in real estate, private equity in certain sectors. I do a ton of mobile home parks right now. I really like that space. There's a lot of depreciation you can go capitalize. And we're in the affordable housing market where that is becoming one of the most highly attractive areas to invest in because there's such a shortage of housing there right now. But real estate is its own animal and its own beast. So it's a great place for depreciation, I would say, to your audience of understanding what that is. So if you make a lot of income and you can go offset that with some real estate, fantastic place. If you're trying to make some sort of world of like, I want to go retire off passive income, it's not going to happen, more or less. So just be very mindful of like where you're putting your time to truly invest. If I were to go invest back today, my early 20s, I'd put 100% back into myself like I'm doing right now and go create the highest skill set that can go create me the most amount of money, and I can go compound that across multiple sectors.
I love that. And I'm not going to table this question. I have a question from somebody in the audience, but I think I heard you talk the core, core formula or something along these lines. Am I something ringing true there?
I have a formula. I say a formula that I really focus on today is like a lot of times we're always solving for X in life, right? And X is usually the outcome. And Y and Z. So Y would be the people, Z would be the opportunity. So a lot of times we're always solving for the outcome, which is the thing we're not supposed to be solving for in reality. So sometimes we're in the business and we don't really know what business we're in. Where if you actually focus on the controllables, which is the people that you put together and the opportunity, and you couple that together, the outcome and likelihood of the outcome to become successful is very high. But sometimes we're so focused on the outcome that we actually do not take enough time to bring the best people in the room and tying that to the best opportunity. So all I focus on today is skill set, opportunity, people, and I marry those two things together. And that's, recently when I launched this fund, the PAVE, which is a private equity fund that buys paving companies only, I'm so narrow focused on this right now, was because I brought the best general partner I think I can go find in my fund. I brought the best capital raiser to go raise equity for this. I brought a team of advisors who built $30-40 million worth of paving companies. So across the 3 advisors, we have over $120 million of enterprise revenue value that people have created in paving itself. And I said, okay, this is the right opportunity. This is the right skill set of people. I'm not worried about the outcome.
Right.
The outcome will come.
Yeah, you've got the variables for the right outcome there, 100%. Yeah. So question, and just want to say hello to a few people. Maybe some of them are within your network. Definitely Omar. He's reached out. He's giving accolades. Sam's the best, and loving the interview. Chi J, just giving a shout out. Tim Fitzpatrick. He's the CEO of Icona Health. They're in education, VR, AR, AI, focus on ESRD spectrum. But he's got a question, and it's really kind of about the balance again. Is you got several companies, you've got interest and bandwidth, right? And it sounds like you've got a formula for even at the C level building the what is the right term, by the way? Is it the honeypot or the honeywell? Which was it?
You can call it the honeypot.
Honeypot. All right. So even at the CEO level, having the right people in place is there. You're mentoring these people. So how do you balance that bandwidth? How do you balance the happiness? I think we've touched on a little bit. Maybe we can dive into that a little bit. And he's also curious about, kind of what's next if you've got anything that's not already in the portfolio pipeline.
Yeah. So I have a big whiteboard in my room. To answer your question, Tim, is like, how do I actually have a good life while owning a lot of pieces of companies, managing companies, a real estate portfolio? It's actually creating a to-who list, right? So across all my companies, I basically have problems, and I tie a who to that. And that who can be known or unknown. Yeah. But if they're unknown, I'm going to hire that person. And then as I sit across and I want to go hire that person, it's just one question. What cheat code are you going to unlock for me today? And I want them to answer that, right? And if they can answer that deliberately, knowing that I know exactly the cheat code they're going to unlock, that's going to solve my problem that's on my whiteboard, you're hired.
So Omar, I think that, excuse me, may have answered Omar's question is, how do you recruit and retain top talent? So maybe there's a part of your method of recruitment, or at least part of the sniff test.
Yeah.
Are there other factors to how do you lure the right people in? Do you poach? Do you outreach? Do you wait for inbound? And then how do you retain these people?
Do you want to know the secret to retention? It's building a culture of people around them so they can want to be in an environment that they will love being in that environment for a long time. So Scott Galloway made a post recently that I absolutely loved. He says the secret to a small business is retaining high quality individuals by hiring 2 friends who go to work together every single day. And then if there's 4 of them together, they can actually take his credit card and spend it and go travel anywhere and spend on anything they want. Because what you're trying to do is actually create a culture, right?
Yeah.
The second that people are making decisions on your behalf and you're not involved and that decision was successful, your management skills turn into culture. And that's a huge level of success that you should pat yourself on the back for. And that's what I've learned how to create in the medical device space, and I'm translating that into other companies today as well. So another thing too is you want to ask your employees, and I do this a lot, how happy are you today? And it catches them off guard because not many people do that. And I want them to be super happy because, if I overpay them a little bit more, what does that really do for me? Because the outcome of change costs you so much. Not many people understand that. And if I have an employee, I have one guy who's been with me since the day I started the company. He's one of my best customer service guys now. We've gone through ups and downs. He's helped me fulfill crazy orders. He's, done all this crazy supply chain for us. And 8 years later, I still ask him almost every other day, how happy are you today from a 1 to 10? If it's under a 7, I'm going to stop everything I'm doing. I want to figure out why he's not a 7 out of 10 at least on happiness. Because that's going to go create culture that can allow me to go travel the world if I want to, knowing my business are operating in its highest form.
You got this. So we got to understand this. I've heard it a few times now, this rule of 7. If it's less than or 7 or less, right?
Yep.
It's not success. It's not what you want to move forward with. It's tell us more about this formula.
So I heard a couple of people say C's get degrees, right? So if I do my math correctly, I think a 7 out of 10 is a C minus, 70%, but you're still passing.
Right.
So we can all still be in a place in life where, we're walking through life at a 7 out of 10, but a D, you failed. Fair? So if we can get you to at least a 7, I'm closer to getting you to 8 or 9.
Right.
If you're at a 5 or a 6, it's really hard to get someone who's failing and turn them around the corner, right? It's a lot more work.
Yeah.
So I never want them to get below a 7.
Yeah.
And I want them to be always like look me in the eye and be completely honest with me at the end of the week that they still feel that they want to go to work the next week and work for me and the people around me. And if I know how to go create that culture, I create LTV, lifetime value of these employees and the company itself. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to be the richest man in the world. I'm trying to create automations for my businesses that work without me.
Is there a end in sight for this builder that you are, or is it till the nails are in the coffin that you'll be building? Because it sounds like you're having fun, you're living life, there's a passion behind what you're doing. I don't see a reason to stop that. But what's your vision of enough, if there is enough?
There's no outcome for me. I've said this a couple of times on different podcasts, is I just don't want to be 80 years old and using the word should.
Yeah.
And I should have done this, and I should have, done this trip, and I should have gone to Burning Man. I want to be able to go do all those things now.
Did you do that?
I'm going this year.
All right.
But I travel a ton. This year in 2024, every single month I've traveled somewhere, whether it's internationally, domestically, whether it's fun, whether it's work. I'm always moving and shaking. I think it's very smart for individuals to have a litmus test of your company. If you're always working in your business and you feel like you're tied to that, you've done something incorrectly.
Yeah.
You haven't built systems. You haven't read the book Traction. You haven't built SOPs in place. I'm working on the machine more than anything else in my life today. I love that.
Yeah.
It's a huge passion of mine to build the machine so you can go and be in Bali, wake up the next day, and you see your report of everything went perfectly, money's coming in, and just learning how to go build that at an early age so then you can go translate that in higher level opportunities with bigger companies brings me so much joy. And I just want to do this till the day I die, to be honest.
Yeah. So tell me about money. There's a lot moving across your desk for sure. And it's happened at an earlier age than most and I would say if there are, comparables, there's like, they wouldn't be in the same industry in most cases. They'd be in like influencer space or, content space or things like this. But you're doing this in something that is kind of in a lot of cases, a mid-aged man's world. Yeah. But you did it as a very young man. You're now I'll kind of pull from one of the episodes I saw of you in the upper echelon of the medical device distribution world, right?
Sure.
So with that comes a lot of reward. You mentioned some of the travel, and I think, the older I get, I can appreciate travel as something that I should have done a lot sooner.
Yep.
A lot sooner because...
Should. You just use the word should.
Oh, I'm going to use it because I never traveled until after 40s.
Yeah.
And when I did it, I always told myself, I don't have time for travel because, your litmus test, I'm always in there. I cannot be.
Change time
away.
for important in life. When someone tells you they don't have time for this, change that to this is not important to them.
Yeah.
That's really what it means.
100%. And it wasn't. But I think the reason why it wasn't important to me was because I had nothing to gauge. Like, I'd never been anywhere. And when the first time I went, as crazy as it sounds, to Cancun, Mexico, like, I was like, holy crap, the culture's so different. And I learned something about people that, like, I really appreciated that I can't appreciate here in Los Angeles the same way.
Yeah.
I appreciate culture here, but I just don't see the real culture. I went to the Philippines recently. I'm married to a Filipina.
Nice.
She's as Filipino as they get. She speaks Filipino most of the day, or Tagalog most of the day. But until I went to the Philippines, I really didn't understand, and I probably still don't, but I have a much better understanding and appreciation for the culture. So beautiful, right?
Yep.
Went to Amsterdam and Czech Republic recently, and same thing. Like, I already want to go back, man.
Love those places.
I want to go back,
Been there 5 times.
I could see myself doing that, like, within a year.
Nice.
Both places, right? Beautiful, yeah. So what else? Travel, like what?
Yeah, you talked about money. I'll get into that a little bit. So I'm losing a lot of emotional tie to money now. Because I was so obsessively focused and let it define who I was. Yeah, and again, I always talk about my late 20s because in my late 20s, I was probably a 40-year-old man mentally. But the inflection point happened, I think I was 27, 28. and a little TMI here, but I was basically running a payroll expense ratio overhead of $250,000 a month. And when you're in your late 20s, burning $250,000 a month every single month, and you have employees of people who have families and they have kids and they have to feed a family of 7. And I'm over here just worried about what's coming in. Can I make payroll to afford this right now? It just consumed who I was as an individual. And I defined my level of success based off of my monthly nut, and I never wanted that to happen. So at that point, I said, I'm willing to go take a lot less off the table and delegate, give a lot more to all the people who are working on the day-to-day operations for me, and make sure that they are so fulfilled where when I know that happens, they actually start working so much harder for me. And then the money just starts coming in more and more over time because the machine's working better. Instead, when you're so focused on money and you want it all for yourself, nothing good happens out of that. And people can sense that too, right? And that's just from being young. Like in my late 20s, early 20s, I didn't know much about business. I had the highest churn of any individual when hiring people when I first got going. I think I went through 9 employees my first 14 months.
Oh, wow.
I just churned. Why? Because you're trying to find an individual who can go sell all these complex products to very sophisticated individuals and work for a mad, angry 27-year-old who didn't know anything about business at the time, to be honest.
I mean, what made you mad and angry? Did you expect people to be as, badass as you, or what was it?
The level of expectation was one of them. But the second thing, too, is look at the industry that we're in. It's high stress. It's people calling you last minute saying, I need you here right now. And can you go deliver this? And I'm supposed to expect someone who makes a lot less than me in this space to go stop everything they're doing and say, please go drive 40 miles and get this dropped off and go stand in this surgery, whatever it may be, and go deliver this product and make sure it's executable for the next 4 or 5 hours. You're not going to come home, by the way, till 10 p.m. that night. By the way, do you want to come work the next day? That's a really hard sell. Right. And when I go back to saying opportunity and skill set, are those two things aligned? If I were to go back, I probably wouldn't ever enter the space.
Really?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have. There's a lot I learned from, and it's a great experience. Don't get me wrong. I love what I've learned thus far. I sold a lot of commodity items that made me a stellar sales rep. But if I were to start all over, I would have never entered medical device.
I mean, let's stick on this a few minutes because there's people that are watching us, right? And we've got a pretty broad spectrum in our audience, from the males, the females, the age groups, the type of people that are watching as far as their occupations. A lot of them come from the medical space. Some of them are staffers. But they're looking at what can I do? And part of my journey has been from the staffer into the operator and the educator and into now medical device sales. And, it's kind of evolved from what the core was, which was clinical, into utilizing those skills into now a much, the education, the administration, and then the sales side of it. So when you say you wouldn't go back to it, or you wouldn't do that again if you had a chance to do it again, right? What are the downsides of it? What are the side? Is there something else that you would have done that, because of the same skill set, is just a better pathway?
Your community does not want to see you win. You're surrounded by, physicians, nurses, maybe middle management in America, that really does not want to see you win, to be honest. And maybe some people can resonate with that, some people can't. But I promise you this is when a physician knows, unfortunately, a sales rep, walked out of a surgery, potentially made more than they did, there's a level of resentment there. And they know whether you say anything or not, right? Nurses are just, they're volatile at this point now. They're so compliant. They're following all this compliance. They just look at you as this person with a red hat on, and you're just this person who they think is just making money every single second. And there's a level of stigma there that they just point at you, where they try to degrade you for who you really are, when in reality, you're just a service provider trying to make everything go. And there's a huge lack of appreciation that I wish, if there's any nurses or any OR directors watching this, how you treat these reps, if you're treating them poorly, is the worst thing that you're doing in life for healthcare today. Because these reps are what makes these surgeries go, and you've turned this industry into something a little bit more malignant than it ever should be.
And it's like a straw man mentality, right? Is, because I know you're making a living off of this, I don't want you to have the utilization or, the contract or I want to
Correct.
make it a hard time for you. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah, and I think as I've gotten older, you can say I put some muscles on, some weight on now after doing this for 7-8 years, and I'm a bit unapologetic in my approach. If you were to take the scrubs off, and they would probably never talk to you in that same limelight if you were outside the OR,
Right.
or outside the hospital setting. But in the hospital setting, there's a sense of crazy leverage that these physicians or these nurses want to dictate and overpower over these reps and make them feel less.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's right at all.
I don't either. I mean, we were kind of talking earlier that, again, with the audience and really the purpose of the podcast here is just to kind of expose, in a good way, this community that we have, this village, right? So when you think about the need for care, you've got, the chronic conditions or the conditions that you have, and the physicians that see you for that, and the specialists that are, endocrinologists and gastros
Yep.
and cardiologists and different things like this. Then you've got the care teams in different sort of centers, from nurses to therapists to technicians. And when you think about all those clinical people, and, I hadn't really thought about that, the rep side of it, how, maybe I've seen it and I haven't noticed it, that there's a snubbing.
There is.
I can speak even some of my personal experiences of like the category of like, where did you come from? Thinking about you as a 25, 24-year-old young man, and it's like you're in neuro, right? Mm-hmm. Where'd you come from? What are you, a nurse? Are you and you were none of those, right?
None of those.
And then you've got reps out there that are nurses, and some of them that are medical liaisons and things like this. Have you seen that sort of breakdown as well? As like, what's your credential?
Yeah, I think people, they like to put some sort of judgment on you, a pre-existing judgment, without even knowing who you are. And then it creates this connotation where everyone has their guard up, right? Rather than trying to make some sort of peace and co-merge something together, because in the end, it's all about the patient. This industry is highly lucrative for a few reasons, right? We end up spending $13,000 per patient across America. So you take that $13,000, multiply that by 360 million people, that's about $1 gazillion, right? So
Thanks for doing the math for me.
Yeah, if I get my math right, this is a highly lucrative industry.
Yeah.
So the healthcare GDP in America is the highest of any other GDP out there in the entire world.
Yeah.
So there's a level of interest from the sales rep side, the industry side, the private equity side, that they find healthcare that to be one of the safest places to go play ball in.
Yeah.
The other side of the whole medical device space and healthcare space that I find very unfortunate is, you have an increase of inflation, but then these hospitals continuously want to cut costs to then reduce innovation that's happening in healthcare.
Yeah.
Because all they want to go see is this materials management guy who's never stepped foot in an OR just go and cut costs by 30% so he can get his bonus.
Yeah.
That's a carcass. That's absolute bullshit.
Right.
So, there's this level of trifecta that where everyone's getting fucked. And what that is these insurance companies are profiting like no other, but these offshore bank accounts where they dictate how much reimbursement is coming back to physicians and how much is coming back to the doctors, and to the hospitals. And there's usually a disproportionate return of what they're actually getting, which then causes a level of frustration that then resonates back down to all the industry partners to then cut them the most.
Yeah.
I find these businesses the funniest. So the best businesses right now are the businesses that are put in healthcare that they can go charge these medical device companies. Like you can go make these medical device reps go buy scrubs now. Now they have to go buy parking passes.
Yeah.
All these things that come down to
Yep.
the medical device companies because they know their path to entry is a mandatory statement for them to go enter the marketplace to go play ball,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Vendor credentialing, all these things,
Yes.
just to go enter the space and go actually try to have that intent to go sell. You got to at least put $10K on the table just to get started.
I mean, what a gauntlet. I think about hospital reps or acute reps, right? Surgical reps. And yeah, it's just a gauntlet. It's a high price tag. I think, it's a high investment on a lot of avenues. Money, time, motion. It kind of speaks to the ticket or the take home for the reps as well, right? It is a gauntlet. Sometimes I think, hey, we make the big bucks because fill in the blank. What is that to you?
We make the big bucks so we can get freedom. So everyone should strive for a level of freedom in their life, because I promise you freedom is an equilibrium to true wealth in life. Having a bunch of money in your bank account, let it sit there in some S&P 500 or a high yield index savings account, and looking at that does not bring happiness. But knowing that you can actually go and travel and be with your friends and be with your family at your own leisure is the true wealth. And that is the outcome, if there is an outcome.
Yeah.
Understanding that from an early stage in your life. And we are sold this false destination at the age of 22 to go sign up for a job that maybe pays you $50,000 to $65,000, that ties you up for 40 hours a week, that then constrains you from even having any sort of hope of having the time and obligation to go fulfill with your family, that then causes you all this stress in your life and in relationships and so forth, to not let you actually build the life that you actually want. So you end up trying to unwind this whole carcass that you've already built to try to go on this entrepreneurship journey. And now you have this side hustle here that you're trying to figure out, and you're in this gray area that you don't really know what you're doing at this point.
Yeah.
And at that point, everyone gets depression. They start getting on pills, and then that's why society gets all fucked up.
Yeah.
So it's like, I wish people could understand from the get-go that, half of the people probably should not even go to college today, because a 3.3 degree from Pepperdine University, no offense, does not really bring any merit to society today. So if, go and find a level of skill set that you can go acquire at an early age, go double down on that, underscore that in a way that you can go create a ton of leverage for yourself and go find freedom as fast as possible.
I think I heard this from multiple people that we should be taking notes from, is that, when you think about that, and maybe I heard it from you today, actually, is when you think about that money, the best investment, I mean, you talked about travel and enjoying your life, but you'll never fail with educating yourself.
No.
And there's a lot of ways to do that, as you've just said. Some of it's the formal route. Some of it is, I think I've heard you use the term school of hard knocks.
Yeah. I think the best self-education today, in my opinion, is learning how to storytell.
Yeah.
I have a rule right now where if I fly over 4 hours, I'm always taking first class. I know this sounds a little bit arrogant of myself, but
I need to take that rule from you, man. Like, I got to tell you, that everybody needs to take that one.
What happens when you go fly business class, you start meeting people.
Yeah.
And those opportunities are sometimes once in a lifetime opportunities. If I've told you some of the people that I've actually sat next to in business class who've changed my life, it would blow your mind, in the sense that, you're looking at creating networks, and the highest networks to get you in rooms that you weren't in today, so you can be in rooms that you want to be in the future. And if you know how to do that by having the art of storytelling, whether it's written content or whether it's verbal way of communicating, you start to convey yourself to connect with people that you're seeking to go be with. And that actually was where the true wealth really lies.
Yeah.
It's through the people. So surrounding yourself in the right circles. And I'm very big on this right now, where, I'm so proud of the community that I built thus far. I think even you look at my community 2 years ago, it's vastly changed, and it should change, because if it's not changing, that means you're not changing. You want to have progressive outward motion on every year that you're growing. New people should be coming in your life they're actually putting their arm out there, grabbing you and saying, you're going to come in this room with me, and you're going to grow with me and do hard shit. Because on the other side of hard shit is something fantastic, and you want to go feel that friction. So I'm always seeking that. And that's like my true destination of what I want to continue to go do, is very challenging goals to go accomplish with really good people that I love doing business with, that I can go love having a drink with, grabbing food with. These are people I want to go travel with. My business partner and I, who are general partners in the fund, are going to Greece in a month.
Oh, nice.
Go spending time there. Yes, we'll work a little bit, but it's about leisure and play. I want to love the people that I work with at all times. So, these things are very important to me. And I think you stop looking at money and you start looking at connections, and knowing how to make those connections is some sort of huge enterprise value that you did not think about today, but in the future, it will pay you massive dividends. Another piece of entrepreneurship that I wish I knew in my early 20s was you have a fixed amount of debt when you first start with an unknown outcome. And you have to be okay with knowing that you are incurring a lot of negative debt to start, and just know that the process of doing this journey will come out so good on the other side if you just have a level of self-belief that you will make it happen by having the right people and the right opportunity in the room. The outcome will be fantastic.
Let's talk about the people. Everything you're saying, it's hitting me to the soul. The debt accrual.
Yep.
And I was talking with Paco one day about just people who sit in the car with you when you drive, right? What do you drive?
Car wise?
Yeah, I'm nosy, man. What do you drive?
A G-Wagon.
Oh, man. All right. Nice. So that's got like the bi-turbo and, right? Like it's
does.
super fast car. So do you drive it fast?
I'm not that fast of a driver. I'm more of a comfort driver, but it can move.
So I went to Czech Republic a few weeks ago, right? And good buddy of mine, he's like, hey,
Beer's cheaper than water.
watch this, right? I couldn't believe how he drove his V4 Mercedes, but like they must have some sort of different limits on their controls there because that thing hauled ass. And he's going through turns and stuff. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to die in Czech Republic, right? Like,
Yeah.
I got family back home. But it makes me think about like my wife. You just met my wife, right?
Yeah.
She's sat in my car for 18 years now.
Yeah.
And she rides, you know what I mean? And I'm using this as an analogy or a metaphor, right? That sometimes there are people that sit in the back seat. We accrue all this debt. We take risks, things like this.
Yeah.
Is there somebody on your side? Is it family? Is there a special person in your life that is taking these rides with you, or is it all business partners and people that go to war with you?
You know, I have a few really close friends who I would give everything to. I think I have a law, and I actually stole this from Naval Ravikant, is find people who you can do business with for life. And if you can't, don't do business with them for a day.
Yeah.
And if you know how to take that concept of tying that to ethics from an early on stage in your career, you will have a compounding vehicle you don't know what to do with. I hired some really good, talented people in my life who were savants within their own echelon, and they ended up to be quite evil, right? And I had to go restart that entire process. So I'd rather hire, to be honest, more or less a B player of their skill set with an A plus in ethics.
Yeah.
Because I can go train that B to go an A, right? Remember, it goes back to my law of like 7 out of 10. Well, if you're 8 and a 5, 8.5,
We can work with that.
We can get you to a 9 pretty fast,
Yeah.
right? We can go refine that because you already have the foundational skills. You're good enough, right? So key ethics, assuring that you're surrounded by people where, you know, if you left them with your wife or your girlfriend, you don't even have to worry about it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Those are the people that you want in your circle.
So you mentioned that there's been times where you had to pack it up. Anything you can tell us lesson-wise from that? And, you know, I'll tell you that I've learned those lessons, and I'll probably learn a few more in my life. There's a time where you go like, I think you said in one of your your podcast interviews that there's a time where you go like, I gave it my best. And sometimes it's the machine that you talk about. But I think most of the time it's probably the people. And is it giving up on people? Is it giving up on yourself when you have to call those sort of things, quit?
Yeah, if it's about the people and you've really tried everything you can, you've understood that the person that you've hired or the people that you have in your business today isn't working, you just have to go and take a look in the mirror and said you made a mistake.
Yeah.
And you have to go pay that price to go unwind that and go find new people and be okay with that. It's hard when you start to delegate a lot of things to one individual who then ends up being a piece of shit, because at that point it's really hard to unwind that core individual, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm very big on when you're hiring things out, do things where you'll be so surprised how you can go fractionalize hiring certain tasks, whether it's offshore or people in-house, to just small little things first, and do that as a test. Hiring is like dating, right? Don't go and just like marry someone from the get-go. Mm-hmm. Go on a couple dates, give them a couple things first.
Do people get married today? I don't know.
Yeah, divorce rate in Orange County where I live is 73%. So I think the odds are not very favorable.
Yeah, so I probably shouldn't go for that, huh?
Yeah, right. And then in regard to, if you've done if you're in a business and you feel like it's failed, the one thing that you just want to go tip your hat on today is, did you leave it out? Did you leave it your all? Is your shirt full of sweat that you tried everything first before you go hang it up? Yeah. And I promise you, if you have, it's okay to go walk away. Yeah. I've had that. I've had businesses failed. I probably had several businesses at this point that probably didn't go the way I wanted to go. But I've had a few that's actually murdered it. And those are the ones where the experience of all the bad things that happened was just a bunch of data that I collected to know what to do in my next business. Yeah. So it's always a success. I promise you, every shitty situation turns out to be success over a level of a time horizon. You just have to wait for that.
Scenario, and maybe you've had the experience. So the people were toxic. You pulled your hat out or your foot out, and then they went and blew up to $1 billion company. Ever had that happen? Or scenario wise, hypothetically, how should one feel about that? They still come out winning, or should they feel some remorse towards pulling out on something like that?
Don't ever jealousy, and if you ever got betrayed by people, don't let that affect who you are today. If you have a good DNA and you've always done the most ethical things, and I go back to ethics from the get-go, you having become ethical from the get-go is the most important thing. And if you've done that and you just hired some bad actors, that's on them, right? And if they went and gone on and built something successful without you, it's only a matter of time till the shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
Right? So in the end, all you should do is just focus on yourself. You're chasing you in 3 years. I have a tattoo called Vivid Vision on my arm right now. It's by Cameron Herold. It's a great book if people haven't read it. It's knowing how to reverse engineer your vivid vision. It never really talks about what other people are doing. It's just you in 3 years. Every 6 months, I write a letter to myself. And there's an app that can just go and email that back to me right now. And then I got to go read that every 6 months and see how I change. Nothing is of the letter.
What's that app called? Because I think that's actually a super... people should take that simple sort of subtle advice, right? When I think about patient care, so I've worked for years in delivering care to dialysis patients, right? And these are people with kidney failure. They've lost a lot besides their kidney function because it really interrupts life when you have to go to a dialysis center 3 times a week, et cetera, right? And it's one of the first things I like to learn about people is, Sam, what do you like to do? What's important in life to you, right? And I want to kind of make some assumptions or some notes on what's your hope, because one day I got to hold that up to you and say, Sam, remember you told me that you wanted to see, the day where you could go surf in Maui, and you got to take care of yourself to get there, right? Or you told me you wanted a transplant so you could go do 10 other businesses, right? So I got to have that carrot for you, right? And here you are with an app that you keep throwing the carrot back at yourself, going 6 months ago, this is why you started things, or this is what you said you're going to do. Where are you at now?
Yeah, it's just going back to saying, did you do the things that you say you were going to do?
Yeah.
If you know how to have consistent measurement of that, you will end up being quite successful.
Yeah.
After I was playing soccer, I went and coached soccer at these private high schools in Orange County, and some were very well known. Modern Day High School is one of them. And I coached this awesome team of young men who today they're all business professionals. They're in their early 20s. And I have one individual now who I became quite close with, and he's going to be a rock star. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a centimillionaire in the next 5 years. But he built a tech startup, and he hits me up now all the time. And we didn't talk for about 5 years, obviously, from the time that he was in high school, in college, and then he actually bypassed college, but then started this whole AI tech startup, became a huge influencer online. Now I see him doing $55,000 a month of MRR, and he's building this tech startup. And now he's reaching out to me all the time as a mentor, and he's saying, the reason why I actually did this was it was you as a soccer coach that embedded in me all this self-belief when I was 14 years old. And I think that when I hear that, I'm like, wow, I want to go impact a lot more people in any way, shape, or form. If I were to go back and say, what do I want to go be again? I probably want to go be a soccer agent.
Oh, man. A soccer agent?
Yeah, I want to go be a soccer agent because I think I have a knack now for seeing talent at an early age.
Yeah.
So finding that early Leo Messi, finding that early Ronaldo, and seeing if there's that level of talent that I can go identify, that is a $10,000 an hour task.
Wow. That's insane. Well, yeah. Still football is the world's
number one sport,
right?
Yeah, it's a language of its own.
Highest paid as well, right?
It is, yeah. Sports media, if people want to get into that space, it's never going away.
Yeah,
healthcare is going the opposite way, just FYI.
Looking at let's do a little reflection.
Yep.
You've had this great experience from the ranks to now leading and building a portfolio of teams and organizations. With your journey, with your experiences, what do you think are the biggest highlights to inspire others to take on this role of entrepreneurship? And again, being agnostic to the space, what are the core values or the core lessons that you've learned that would inspire and kind of guide us that are really getting into it?
Entrepreneurship is about having a tool to start and a wall in front of you. And then you're supposed to take that small tool and just beat that wall up, and then hopefully trade out that tool for a much bigger item so you can get through that wall. If you know how to go do that consistently, you'll be able to climb walls and be able to go overcome the things that you're looking to go do. And I think at an early age, I always wanted to make sure that the tool that I had was giving me the best competitive advantage that no one else had. So find ways to find things that are effortless to you and go double down on that, and then create some form of leverage within that to go start a business, to go buy a business, whatever it may be, and bring great people around you. I rode a journey of entrepreneurship for 7 years by myself, and I realized that you don't need to go climb a mountain alone. You can go do this with great people, and you can go give some of the pie away. Sometimes people just want to be very selfish and just say, I want to keep everything in the honey hole for myself.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this: there's very few billion-dollar companies or large companies that are one-man show. So learn how to go connect with people and let them want to go work for you in a way that they love you as an individual and they think admirably of you.
Yeah.
If you know how to go do that, you'll be able to go scale your life at the same time. Entrepreneurship is not about a high-paying individual sales job. It's something I didn't learn at an early stage because I was basically a sales rep that turned into a very high-paying sales rep by then, doing my own thing.
Right.
If I knew what I knew now, I would understand the highest skill set is to find people and those forms of leverage, and then using that in a way to grow very big companies.
Yeah.
I say this in a lot of podcasts, but Naval Ravikant is one of my favorite individuals out there. He talks about 4 forms of leverage that everyone should know.
Is that with the
He wrote the Almanac.
The Almanac. Is he also the one with the X?
He owns Angel List as well.
Oh, okay. No, I'm thinking of somebody else.
He's a great speaker, great entrepreneur, venture capitalist as well. But I think the key aspect that's probably stuck with me the most is that there's just only 4 forms of leverage in life and in business. There's technology, there's media, there's money, and there's capital. Technology and media are permissionless forms of leverage, and then money and capital are more permission forms of leverage. So if you know how to use the permissionless forms of leverage, those are the highest forms of leverage because you don't need to ask anyone for permission to go create, a podcast, go create a landing page and sell a service. But then, if you want to go raise money or if you want to go ask people to come work for you, you need permission to go do that, right? So a lot of my skill set was formed around, labor leverage, which is, again, the most antiquated form of leverage, but we need people to go grow things, right?
Right.
So today, find out what form of leverage you think you can be best at today and underscore that to its highest capability to go grow a business, to then allow yourself to relinquish control from that business. Again, I go back to a lot of times is like, how do you relinquish control? You don't want to build something to know that you cannot unwind yourself from that.
Yeah.
And it's very important to the audience to understand that because we start building stuff and then incur all the stress and start taking the medication and we know why we're unhappy in life. A lot of things in life can be solved by a good night's rest, a glass of water, and a hard workout. And if people understood that, I think the healthcare industry would probably be a lot less profitable.
Agreed. And I think, folks like Dana White are already out there kind of saying, hey, I'll never see a medical doctor for general health again. He's looking at...
I don't have a doctor myself.
Really the things you've talked about, right? And, I'll go so far as to kind of start to go over the fence into the biohack. What are your thoughts on biohacks? And, are you utilizing any? Are you leveraging the skill set that you have with any of the biohacks?
Yeah, if people come to my house, I kind of have a cool little compound where I have a sauna, a cold plunge, a gym, a massage table, a red light. I got it all. And I'm that weird guy that's up at 4 a.m. in a cold plunge, and then I'm sauning at night at 9 p.m. before I go to bed. I'm in the gym by 5 a.m. I just want to go train hard every single day. I love to lift heavy. I love to sprint. That stuff fuels me and it keeps me healthy. I'm always about progressive overloading myself to see am I improving from my last workout? Am I doing a lot better? These things is what makes you feel like you're ready to go conquer the world. So I'm all about fueling things back into myself. So if you can biohack in any single way that you can to make yourself feel like $1 million, go do so. But I want to emphasize this really hard. You can't just wake up, have a cup of coffee, and start getting to work, and you don't need to do all this biohacking stuff as well. There's a balance to everything in life, and sometimes people have these excuses that they can't get work done because they haven't done X, Y, Z. They haven't cold plunged, red light, sauna that day, and they feel like shit.
Yeah.
So understand, like, there's a time and place
it's like
for everything.
Placebo, right?
A lot of it is placebo.
Yeah.
There's a lot of studies of people giving placebo pills showing that there's actually no true benefit to that whatsoever.
What they call it, sugar pills.
Exactly. Yeah. So, in my early 20s, I knew nothing about biohacking. What I did every single day is I woke up at 5 a.m. I worked my fucking ass off, and I worked for 14 hours a day for 4 years straight before I started even understanding what a fucking cold plunge was or a sauna was. So I think it's critical to understand that you want to just go and find a way of a happy medium to know what is hard work to you. Test your level of threshold. Are you moving your baseline forward? People don't understand what a baseline is. It's basically seeing what your ground zero is. What's your new hard, right? If for you, like, you can walk into the weight room and start squatting 225, that's your baseline, right? And you're moving up from there.
Yeah.
If you've already bought multiple small units in real estate, you're not going to go back and do that. You're going to go buy bigger things because you've already done that.
Yeah.
So constantly move your baseline forward and challenge yourself every single day. And that is what's going to get you to a level in life where you're always going to be chasing yourself. And that's all that matters.
I think on the face value, it looked like this interview would be really the sales rep, the entrepreneur,
Far from
the
it.
investor. But, right now I'm thinking about, I've got 4 kids, right? You met one of them, he's 10, but I've got 3 that are adults. One that works in the business, one of the businesses I own, one that has his own business. And some of the things you mentioned really make me think about him is, the first class, kind of understanding the place where you're going to be around the people that you want to be around in order to succeed, but also to develop and build yourself. And he's got a business that he does koi fish, like koi pond streams. He imports koi fish from Japan, things like this, right? Koi sourcing. One day he messaged me, texted me, because that's kind of how we communicate now, right? It's text, right? I don't really see him too often, but he's texting me and it's like, I am a member of every cigar lounge in Orange County and LA now. And I was like, and he's like, it didn't click to me right away, but it's like, that's where I meet all my clients. And exactly what you're saying, the storytelling. So, thinking about like young people growing up, mentality on how to, baseline and build off of that. These are stories that I think, it's something that the youth really need today, because I think a lot of times they get stuck in where they're at. Like you said, the common thing is to, get on medication, sit in dwelling on what the problems are and why I can't versus where I'm at and where I can be tomorrow. Yep.
So I'll underscore a couple things within the whole youth education system and where I see a lot of the upward mobility of youth being able to exercise their true talents, right? So we have an attention problem today. We have attention of a squirrel. People can't really have conversations today. You start walking around communities or people or friends at a table and they're all on their cell phones rather than actually conversing from one another.
Yep.
So I think whoever can go gravitate attention today in this youth sector will end up being a billionaire. So a key aspect here, when it was Girl Scout Cookie Week, I went and spent like $700 in a week and probably had one cookie. But what I wanted to go do is find a litmus test. The litmus test with that was, can these kids actually communicate with me and sell me a box of fucking cookies? None of them could at the age between 7 to 11 years old, however old they are. And their parents are there, right? And I'd go to a Whole Foods, I'm walking out and I'm like, okay, sell me the box of cookies, right? And, I have a little girl that says, I'm cute, buy me the box of cookies. I have this little boy that says, hey, I need to go hit my number. Can you buy these cookies? Nothing was like being taught to these kids of saying, hey, what cookies do you like? Are you a peanut butter guy? Do you like, Samoas? Are you a Thin Mint guy? Like,
no qualifying questions at all.
No probing questions. Yeah. I'm like, so you're going to go send these kids out, make them a Girl Scout, quote unquote, or Boy Scout, and not give them the fundamental skills? Like, what are you guys doing today, right? Yeah. So I have this passion that I really want to go build a entrepreneurship school for youth kids one day to teach them the fundamental skills of entrepreneurship between the age of 7 to probably 15, 16. So when they're ready for manhood or womanhood, they've honed in those skills. It's really sad that I've seen this from 23-year-olds who leave college and have zero fucking clue how to do their taxes. Or I talk to physicians who are grown adults and they have no idea how to run a practice.
Yeah.
Is because the youth system of education is beyond corrupt, right? Another study happened that I really love this is they did a study. There's one at Stanford that was happening, and they did this in a youth elementary school too. They said, hey, I'm going to give a group of kids $5. And with that $5, you have to go create the most value of that $5 and create the most money, and you have till the end of the day.
I love that test.
Right. So what they did is these kids were going around. Some kids were like, how do I go take this $5 and compound it? And the other kids were like, fuck the $5. That's a distraction. And those kids were the ones that actually made the most out of it because the $5 is a distraction. It's not the initial money. It's actually going creating value outside of that. And they want to see, are you distracted by the thing I give you today in front of you?
Yeah.
Rather than what's truly important. What service business or what actually are you solving today that's actually in front of you that's most important? And not many people know what's most important today because there's so many distractions in life. So honing in on how you can go gravitate attention to where things matter the most is where I think you'll have the most success in life. And I want to help educate young kids. And if you're a parent today, I think that's the most important thing you should go find within your kids is seeing where their attention really lies. Hopefully it's not on TikTok. Hopefully it's not on social media all day because, it's just a poor use of time of what they're consuming.
Yeah. I love that vision and, keep us apprised. We definitely want to keep tabs on that because I think it's a definite gap in our society today. When I think about just kind of who would excel in those youth sort of programs, there's a lot of kids who probably know this stuff, but they're in different neighborhoods.
Yep.
They're moving things at an early age, if you get what I mean, right? Certain urban areas here in Southern California, kids, 9, 10 years old already have a small enterprise within a middle school or an elementary school, right? Even when I went to elementary school, we had a young guy that was like he ended up, in Club Fed by high school. But there are people out there that I think it kind of goes back to like when you talked about your parents and kind of what they went through, and not comparing what's going on in these urban neighborhoods, but you find a way to do things that are important. You said time. When people say that I don't have, that I don't have time for it right now, or that it's not a priority, right? So you make things happen. You break down those walls, like you said. Last question, and then we'll get to some closing thoughts, Sam. So there's been a fairly recent event on the NASDAQ, Tempest, TEM. Are you familiar with that company or that ticker, TEM?
No, not much.
So AI, precision medicine, raising $410 million. I mean, what are your thoughts on AI in medicine? And the future of, I guess, the investor's mindset from whether it be from private equity, whether it be angels, what's the attraction? What's the future for AI from the investor?
I think everyone should know how to use AI today. It's like saying, when the computers came out, I don't want to learn how to use a computer.
Yeah.
So find it as a tool that you can use as enhancement within your business or within yourself, right? You can write emails a lot faster today. You can do copywriting a lot better today.
Yeah.
So use AI as tools to enhance efficiency, I would say. It will not replace human capital today. There's things that I think AI and like you look at Waymo, the cars out there that are self-driving, they're removing Uber drivers more or less. So understanding where you are of the job level of hierarchy is indicative of where AI will go and actually take over that potential job, right? So I think people sub, $20 an hour are maybe at risk, right? If we're already seeing cars being driven by themselves, there might be robots being able to go clean dishes at the same time too, right? So I think AI is going to be something that is going to be quite unique for the future, but don't let that just sway you of your dreams and passions of what you're trying to go accomplish. Like I said, we built a private equity firm that's only buying paving companies because it's very AI resistant. Last time I checked, robots can't put asphalt down and grading down, right?
So is that a mindset today? It's like what's resistant to it?
Yeah, it's my whole thesis around it, right? I read Elon Musk's biography, and he was talking about when he launched the Tesla truck, there was a turn that was not performing on the Tesla truck, right? So he had the self-driving vehicle on there, and the car did not perform on this turn. So then he actually made a claim saying, go call the city, whether it was Austin, whatever it may be, and tell them to go repave the roads and re-line stripe the roads. This was about 6 months ago when I heard this.
Yeah.
And I said, interesting. A light bulb moment went off in my head. So I was like, okay, increase the technology in vehicles, and the roads need to go and compensate for that as well, right? So I know that there
Which
will
one
be
takes people.
yeah, which one's going to be important for the future? Both will, but we need to make sure that these roads can keep up with the level of technology that's happening today.
Yeah.
So I realized that, if can I go buy these asphalt companies, these paving companies that are doing tens of millions of dollars in revenue, and roll them up and then one day go sell this, right? And I was like, is there historical data that's been done? And I said, yeah, absolutely there has. There's one company who rolled up 42 paving companies and went public for $1.5 billion at a 44x PE ratio, price to earnings ratio. So, you want to, I think today, like the best industries, and you're seeing a lot of people say, I want to be in this boring business sector, more or less. Just to be mindful, 97% of people should not go buy a business. There's a lot of complexity in doing so. I bought my first business when I was 28 years old. I was a little naive, but now I'm buying bigger businesses today, and there's a lot of complexity that goes with it. So what you see on the internet is somewhat of a fallacy of what's actually true reality. And I hope people can just make sure they're investing their time, effort, money in areas that they can go use their skill sets to go create value. And that's what I would focus on today.
So in regard to the AI, just back to we should embrace it. I like the comparison to when the computers came out, when we started using electronic medical records. I remember that in healthcare.
Yeah,
I was like, like I wanted to write on my paper sheet still, right? I was like, this is not going to work, and yeah, I had to come around. Now I love electronic medical records and data repos and data reporting, all that kind of stuff. So, in regard to medicine, I know that there's a really heavy hope and outlook that the predictive analytics and we're already utilizing it, even within the COVID assays and things like this. How do you feel about that personally, that some of the decisions that are being made today are coming from AI? Do you feel like it's refined enough to actually qualify as, a diagnostic or, an analyzer to the amount of medication that should go into our body, these sort of things?
No, I don't agree with it. But again, you have to control the controllables. So if AI is going to take over basically the level of dosage they're going to give to patients, and you're going to be in that industry, you have to understand that this is the cards that are being dealt with you. So whether you like it or not, right, AI eventually will potentially take over that space, right? They're already doing Da Vinci robots, right, are in that space, heavily involved. So they're taking over a lot of instrumentation that, was usually used in open abdomen surgery and so forth. So I think the big thing with AI, you just have to understand where it's taking place in the job market today, where it's taking place in certain industries, and knowing how you can just adapt to it. Because there's only certain things that you can control. And that's the only thing that you should put your focus on, is like where you have actual ability to dictate your skill set within the controlled environments.
Yeah. Sam, let's get a closing thought. I want to thank you.
Yeah.
I've learned so much. I can't wait to watch this back and kind of pull the nuggets and kind of create some quotes on my whiteboard. I have whiteboards everywhere, even here, right? In my room, I have a home office. In my office, well, this is one of my offices, but I got them everywhere, and I'm always writing stuff down. So can't wait to look back on this and pull those nuggets. Again, want to thank Omar Khatib for making the intro.
Yeah.
Perfect alignment here. Look forward to maybe another conversation one day, and keeping tabs on all the progress, especially on that the youth entrepreneurship project. But let's just get a last thought, a last message on entrepreneurship philosophy. You said there's no stop, there's no outcome, if you will. Maybe that is the overlying umbrella of the philosophy here. But what is the philosophy that's going to guide your actions moving forward? I don't know when the last time you wrote that note to yourself was, but what's it going to say on the next one?
That I'm building so much goodwill and trust with all the right people in my life today that will compound in ways that I wouldn't know what to do with it in the future. I'm in the game right now where I'm raising a lot of money, more or less. And I recently had a surgeon write me a $2 million check for our fund out of the blue. And I think when he came and told me why he did that is that you've built so much goodwill over the years that I never asked anything from you and you always delivered. And now the fact that you were going to go do this, I want to support you in every single way possible because I see you as an operator, as an entrepreneur, that all you focus on is by building the right people and the right opportunity together and having so much trust and goodwill within your community. And that was just that just exemplified you stop focusing on the outcome at all times. Focus on what's in front of you today and give people attention and let them feel that they trust you at all time. And the trust will start to compound into wealth.
I love it, man. I think that you're on the right track, obviously, through the traction and the successes you've had. I'm watching and taking notes. I'm not jealous, man, but definitely taking notes. And I think that the audience has gained a lot of valuable insight into the journey, the discipline, the mindset, different approaches and core values that you've lent yourself to. Definitely looking forward to kind of learning more about some of these formulas. I think in some of the previous podcasts, you said I'll share some of these formulas with you.
Yeah.
Maybe the business analysis formula. I know you kind of talked about the X and Y axes. So, man, I just want to thank you again for coming out. It's been nothing but a pleasure, man.
This episode has been brought to you by Dialysis Education Services.